The location? Alaska's legendary North Slope, south of the Kuparuk oil field and inshore towards the Kuparuk River. The time of year? The coldest and darkest months of winter. There's a reason you drill exploratory wells during the winter in this part of Alaska: to protect the tundra. Any type of work in this region must be done when the ground is frozen and covered with snow, generally a period of only 120 days. That means a very short time period within which to mobilize, drill, and leave the area before the surface begins to thaw. Equipment, camp facilities, and supplies have to be obtained well in advance in order to be staged in Prudhoe Bay and made ready for transport to drilling locations. Time on location is not the only test. Winter operations in the Alaskan Arctic mean working in constant darkness, bitter cold temperatures that can drop to minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Then, there are winter winds that whip over the Arctic tundra with gusts of more than 50 miles per hour. These blows, as they are called, can last for several days, reducing visibility and stopping all work when temperatures dip below minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Ensuring that all equipment, material, and personnel necessary to execute these exploratory programs are available and present is a logistical challenge of immeasurable proportions. Although oil companies have been operating in Alaska's Arctic for more than 45 years, and the giant Prudhoe Bay and Kuparuk oil fields are well established, many new exploration programs are taking place in areas not supported by the infrastructure of established fields. In comparison to oil-producing regions in more moderate climates, material and supplies supporting Alaskan operations must be shipped and staged well ahead of the drilling season. This is due largely to the fact that the system of gravel roads connecting the North Slope oil fields is limited and very busy. More importantly, there is only one link to the rest of the Alaska Highway network. Known as the Haul Road, the Dalton Highway is an isolated 414-mile gravel road that runs through Alaska's interior hills, crosses the rugged Brooks Range, and drops into the Arctic coastal plain. The road ends at Dead Horse, the industry's North Slope logistics center. Although the road is maintained year-round, it is not paved or multi-lane, and services are limited. A trip takes 2 to 4 days, depending on weather, road conditions, and the load being carried. The challenge is even more difficult by the necessity of building temporary roads to transport workers and equipment safely over the tundra to the various drilling sites. In the early days of Prudhoe Bay, gravel was used to build these roads, but that is no longer the case. Today's roads and pads are made of ice.
The history of ice roads, I know you've been involved up here on the slope for a long time. Is this something that started on the North Slope, or have they done them in other areas of the world? Or do you know anything about, can you give us any insight as to the little history behind the ice road concept?
I believe, to my knowledge, I know they've been building ice roads in Canada for supply, but to tell you the truth, I've been working since the 70s up here building ice roads. and pads, herb strips, things like that. And up here it's an everyday thing, but I would say it was invented here in Alaska. I think the Canadians were probably, or Eskimo, whoever, they've been making trails up here for years, and somebody decided to put a little water on there and it lasts longer. So,
well, it's sort of interesting, that concept, utilizing the environment to your advantage.
right.
I mean, there must be, it's kind of neat in that regard, don't you think?
Well, I think it is, and really the nice part about it, Jim, when we're all done with this, you'll come back next year and you won't even know we're here. There'll be little tussocks where it's a little greener and things like that, but you don't harm the environment. Where years ago they used to shave it off. You probably remember that, but now everything is environmentally friendly.
Building ice roads and drilling pads begins with identifying the route, securing the equipment, and obtaining permits from appropriate state and federal agencies. Actual construction depends upon the weather and is not allowed until a sufficient cover of snow has fallen and the temperature drops to a minus 15 to 25 degrees Fahrenheit. Step 1 in the process, marking the trail. With permits in hand, the survey crew lays out the path. They are followed closely by equipment that packs down the existing snow found along the route.
Well, what we do is we'll pioneer one lane, and then we take and build up the left-hand lane where it's staked, like I mentioned earlier. We build that up so then the water trucks, vehicles, and mostly the construction equipment, the ice, the snow haulers, the water trucks, and the blades and such can move along at 20-25 miles an hour, and that way we can get further on down the road in a day's time. And then we have a night shift that will come by, Jim, and take care of the portion that you saw last night that was rough. So we just build one lane, and then the night shift will come in and they'll build the second lane. And then as we get further on down the road, the night crew will fall back and do what we say, put the finish to it. They'll come back in and make it nice and smooth. But that's the best way to do it.
The tundra's surface is uneven. During this initial packing of the snow, the crews work to even out the small peaks and valleys with snow or a slurry of snow and water. Load after load of snow was deposited on the roadway and packed down. The vehicles used to pack the snow ran back and forth over the area, using their large tires to further compress the snow and smooth the surface. Once the pre-packing was completed, water taken from the same permitted lakes as the snow was laid down to form a solid base. After the surface freezes, it was scraped and leveled. The process continued with alternating layers of snow mixed with ice chips, followed by water and more packing. With a firm base in place, the crew begins hauling in additional snow and building up the roadway. A fleet of loaders, snow haulers, water tankers, and graders handled the road construction. It is a painstaking process to push the road forward mile by mile, grading and leveling the roadway, applying thousands of gallons of water, and moving tons of snow to build a winter highway 6 inches thick and 35 feet wide.
Where do you get the snow from?
Well, we find the snow on all the lakes around here. There's a lot of potholes around here, so we go around and borrow all the snow we can off the lakes. We're permitted to go ahead and take the snow off the lakes. We can't take any of the ice off the lakes or any water off any of the lakes that are not permitted. And we have 6 water sources on this project. Here right now we're lucky. I mean, there's enough snow to get us through, but I've been on projects where we actually brought snowmakers like you use on the ski slopes, and because there was no snow that year, and so we brought in 3 snowmakers and we made our own snow and built the road. But here we're doing pretty good, and so far we have the permission to use ice chips to construct the road also, but we don't have enough ice on the lakes right now. We only have about 2.5 feet of ice in 4 to 6 feet of water, so we can't hardly take too much ice off because these trimmers that we use to make ice chips is pretty heavy and we don't want to fall in, so we're going back to the old way of just using snow, and it works well.
do you get the water from? If everything's frozen, where are you getting the water?
Well, we will go out here and what we call profiling a lake, see how deep it is. And once they punch through the 2.5 feet of ice, then they'll take a stick and measure the water.
.5 snow.
2.2 ice.
2.2 ice.
3-foot mud line.
3-foot mud line.
With the water sources identified, withdrawing the water is performed by generators, pumps, and hoses.
Man, that was good.
Hard to visualize the lakes around here.
Yeah.
That's why you need GPS to make sure you're in the right location on the lake.
They're diesel engines driving a 6-inch pump, and they have a hose that's neck down to 4-inch, and they'll put the hose into the back of the truck, and that diesel pump will fill that truck up.
How long does that take to fill them? I see you got different, like you got the vac truck style, and you got the big Terexes with big water driving. How many thousands of gallons do those things hold, and how long does it take to fill them?
It takes on a vac truck, like it's just going by us right now, Jim, it takes probably about 19 to 20 minutes to fill that. And on the big Terex, the B70s, it probably takes right about 25 to 30 minutes to fill it.
How quick does it take to dump?
Oh, they'll dump that Terex can probably dump its load in probably 10 to 15 minutes for them to run it out, because they try not to put too much water down. You know, if you put too much water down, then you've ate up all your snow, you know, and then you just got too much slush. So the thing of it is, the blade man and stuff will tell them, well, speed up, slow down, or shut your water off and wait a minute until we get through with mixing it up, and then they'll go on.
What kind of depth does the loader operator, the blade guy, shoot for with regards to making that slush? I mean, he likes to have what, like a foot of slush to work with, or?
Right around a foot, Jim. What they'll do is they'll mix up the snow and they'll lay it out, and then they'll kind of move back and forth with their tires and pack it into the hole, but right at a foot, because you have to. The water will not penetrate this snow very far. Everybody thinks, well, it'll go down, it'll sink down a foot or 2 foot in there, but it doesn't. So you have to put it in there, dump it in, mix it up, and then lay it back out again.
And it bonds fine to the previous layer?
Oh yeah, it does. Like your ice cube tray, for example, if you put a layer of water in there, freeze that, and then put some more on top of it, there might be a little bitty crack in places, but yes, it does bond good.
Good stuff.
As far as the cold goes, the optimum temperature for building an ice road is between 15 to 25 below. That's really the best temperature. When you get down to 40 below, the ice, the water freezes really, really fast. So you really have to stay on top of your mixing and laying it out. But when it's at this temperature here, it's really good. The wind only affects warm-blooded people like you and me. But as far as the ice or anything freeze faster, not very much.
So it doesn't make the ice freeze faster. So working time, when you say 15, 20 below optimum, it's ideal working time for the blades, and that's really...
Yeah, they get a chance to work more, but we were here last week and it was 43 below getting in there, and it was freezing pretty fast. Plus the water trucks, we were having trouble with the water trucks freezing up and things like that. And of course, it's harder on the equipment as well as the people.
The tanks, the inside of the tanks, do they ice up? Is there a layer of ice on the inside of the tanks?
Yeah, we've had them freeze up. We had to go buy 250 barrels of hot water and put them in each of the tanks and thaw it out. So to answer your question, it does get ice built up on the inside. But we get hot water from the rig up here and thaw them out, and then we go back to work.
Again, that's just part of life of building an ice road.
That's part of life. When you want it to freeze, it's going to freeze up in the tanks. The tanks are insulated, and they have some heat in them, but they still, it'll accumulate ice.
When you say putting the polish on, what type of equipment do you use?
Well, normally what it is a blade and a water truck will come through, and you'll see the windrows along the side, the stake line, and he'll come through and he'll pull that windrow in, and he'll put water on it, let it sit up, and then he'll come back and shave the ice on it. And then once they get the water on there and it fills all the small holes in, and the slush basically is what it is, that's what makes it nice and smooth like you've been driving on. Like any kind of construction job, you have your finish people come through, and your blade man is the guy that puts the final touch to it, and they're very good. The blade is the one that actually puts the polish to it.
How do you do the math on calculating when the ice road is sufficient enough to support a moving drilling rig?
Well, I've been told that this one section of this drilling rig weighs probably around 600,000. But we want to make sure that we have a good foot of ice on the ice road in all the holes and such. But the best way to tell, Jim, to answer that question is when you drive that B70 fully loaded with water over it, he'll find any holes that you got out there. And that's kind of the test. If that breaks through, then you got to go back and patch this hole. And another thing is a pickup. Pickup will find a hole faster than these big rubber tired loaders and such that you see out on the field. But yes, that B70 is kind of our hole finder, you might say.
Something special or different about the construction of the drill pad as opposed to the ice road?
Yes, there is. That's Where the rig itself sits, we have to have a minimum of 12 inches of solid ice. And outside, that's a 100 by 100 area where the rig sits. Outside that, where the camp and the supplies, for example, drilling muds, the tubulars, the casing, things like that, that only has to be 6 inches. But keep in mind, we have to be 6 inches above the tundra. Plus, we put a little extra in there because it has to be fairly level and flat. So there's just, it's not as, well, it is as technical. It's technical to the point that we have to make sure that the rig sets level. And we go in there and take grade shots with it, and then we'll come back in with the blade and flatten it out, because they can't be more than about 3 to 4 inches off in this 100-foot area, because the rig itself has to set level.
What about the delineators on the road? How do they put those in?
Well, they put them in with a chainsaw, and they have their safety devices on their boots. We have metal shoes that go over the top of their bunny boots, but they actually cut them in with a chainsaw. They put them down in about 6-8 inches down the ground. Then we'll come back with a water truck and we'll freeze them in so they stay there. But the delineators are to get you home. If you notice the reflectors on the road, they're white on one side and orange on the other side. In other words, when you're going down the road, the right-hand side is white, the left-hand side is orange. So you follow the white all the way home. It's a highway to get home on, basically, is what it is. You follow those stakes, and I've been in blows so bad that you need to count how many seconds it takes you to get you from one to the other. In other words, you count like 5. If you don't see that stake, you should stop because you're off the road. And it's very, very easy in a blow to get off the road because the snow is moving so much, and it really, really disorientates you where you're at, where you're going. But as long as you can see those stakes, you can make her home.
Once the road is built, a maintenance crew keeps it usable by patching holes, clearing drifting snow, and making certain that all important trail markers stay in place.
This snow, believe it or not, is very abrasive. And when the wind starts blowing, it'll actually deteriorate the ice. It'll eat it away. If you didn't keep maintaining it and putting water on it and pulling a dragger, putting a little bit more snow on to patch the holes and such, you'll actually eat your ice road away. So we do keep, once we have the road constructed, then there's a maintenance crew that'll come by with snow blowers and such and keep it maintained.
Tell me about a typical maintenance program for an ice road.
A typical maintenance program for the ice road, Jim, would be you need a blade and a snow blower and a water truck. And the water truck, of course, keeps putting water down and keeps building this thickness of ice up. So comes April, May, or March, whenever they got to get off the tundra, you have enough ice road there to support the rig that you're taking out. So you can't just build it and forget about it. You have to keep maintaining it. For example, if we get a blow here, all the equipment and everything will be moved off here, and then we won't do anything to this until the blow quits. Then we'll come back and open it up. They'll bring the snow blower in, which is a very, very big piece of equipment. They'll bring that in and punch a hole through it, or the loaders will come along and dig a hole through it.
So you can lose a lot of time just by, the blow itself might tie you up for a day or two. Then you got to...
Absolutely.
Is that a common occurrence? I guess probably just reality.
It is. It's reality to the North Slope because we've been very fortunate on this project. So far we have not had a blow. But as we're sitting here, that the snow is starting to move. And for example, a 1-foot berm can make a 2-foot drift on the road where you can drive through it, but after a while one of them's going to get you and you're going to stop.
Technology changed over the years with regards to constructing them? I mean, it's just cold and ice and snow, right?
It's building the same way we were back in the 70s, so no, I don't think it's gotten any better. The only thing that now they're using ice chips. They go and trim the lakes off and use the ice chips. But we get down to the Kapalik River and we're checking the ice on the lakes down here on our water source. We're going to get some ice chips off there so we can go across the river. Ice chips goes a little bit faster than what snow does. But
Does it build a better road? Or is it
No.
pretty much all the same?
it's pretty much all the same. Yeah, there's a lot of pros and cons. Some people say, oh, that's the only way to build an ice road. I'm from the old school. Snow works good and it's cheap because it doesn't take as much equipment to build an ice road with snow as it does with using ice chips.
It's wintertime. It's dark up here. How do you handle those? Does it bring special logistical problems to the job?
Yes, it does to a degree, Jim. Like around the water holes and such like that, we have light plants. They have like 6-8 lights on them, and they adjust it to light up the area where they're working. On the road itself, all the equipment has considerable amount of lights on it, and a guy just gets used to it. You know, I mean, we have the lines staked where we're going to go, and we have enough lights on the equipment that it doesn't make it daylight, but a person can actually see of what you're doing. I mean,
You can see well. A guy can see well enough to work.
oh, correct. Yes. I find it humorous at times when the guys come up here. Well, gee, you know, I need to work on. I'm not used to working nights. Well, you know, there's really no day shift, night shift type of thing. But later on, it'll start getting a little bit lighter for us. But yeah, it's dark all the time anyway.
Yet, considering the working conditions, another issue is having too much equipment on the job.
I mean, if you got narrow roads, I mean, at some point you could probably be overstressed with equipment and end up with gridlock, can't you?
Yeah, you'll tool block yourself every now and then, but we try to plan out far enough ahead. That's why we have one group of equipment, a water truck and a loader, pioneering ahead, and then the other crew is back, like 2 crews on one shift, and then the other group is coming back and widening the road and not finishing it, because that's the night crew's job to finish it. But yeah, you do get tool blocked every now and then, especially when you have 2 different areas going and you have 4 water trucks. Well, it seems like sometimes if you don't have enough water houses, you have 2 trucks sitting at the water house to be filled up. The big thing up here, when it's like right now, it's 14 below zero, 14 to 16. The wind's blowing out here at 15 to 20. So we're probably, our wind chill's around 40, maybe 40 degrees below zero. But we're all dressed for it.
Workers are keenly aware of the conditions, wearing appropriate Arctic gear and complying with winter rules for safe operation. For exploratory programs, rig crews drill swiftly, then mobilize to the next site. At the end of a drilling program, the entire operation is mobilized back up the ice road to Dead Horse before the season comes to an end. Spill prevention programs are in place, with special collection liners placed under all vehicles and equipment to capture any leaks.
If there's a drop of oil or whatever, or diesel fuel, it's contained in that area. Because in the summertime, when they come back, the agencies come back to inspect this, they don't want to see a sheen out on this lake.
All waste, including drilling cuttings, are taken back to Prudhoe Bay. However, in Alaska, operations do not end when winter exploratory drilling stops. There are also summer activities to plan and execute. Helicopter overflights of the ice road route and drilling pad areas are used to check for any damage to the tundra and allow for debris not removed during the demobilization to be picked up.